Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Herzog, the founder and president of B&R Computers in Kutztown. Today's webinar is for the IRS cybersecurity requirements for tax professionals and other financial institutions. So today we are going to go over why this matters, who must comply, the 6 core requirements, what a written information security plan is, real penalties and risk, and your 30-day action plan. So pretty much inform you about it, and then also tell you how you can get yourself compliance quickly. So what matters, why this matters right now. So tax professionals are prime targets. It's something like during tax season, the threats to their business and the attempted attacks increases about 3 times what non-tax time numbers look like. So 72% of CPA and tax firms have been hit with a phishing attempt in the last 2 years. Now, whether that was successful or not is another story, but it shows that there's a significant increase in phishing attempts against tax and financial institutions. And then the average cost of a breach for a financial institution is $4.5 million, which can include, if it's ransomware, the ransomware payment, or if it's just a traditional breach, there could be breach remediation, investigation. There's a lot to a breach and the cost behind it. And then 2026. So this was a significant upgrade in compliance requirements over previous years. So the FTC has enforced their ramp up of $100,000 per day fine for non-compliance. So what that means is if you're not compliant with the FTC requirements, they can fine you upwards of $100,000 a day for each compliance gap. And then the other thing is the IRS now requires a written information security plan for all tax offices. Even one user businesses need to have a WISP in place. So failure to have that can result in the loss of your EFIN from the IRS. And then if you touch tax data, you must be compliant. Now, what that means is if you are in an individual CPA or an enrolled agent, so even individual people that are running these CPA firms must be compliant. Tax preparation firms of any size must be compliant. Bookkeepers filing on their client's behalf, financial planners with tax clients, payroll service providers, and then any firm with an EFIN or PTIN. And with the 2 documentations that require or spell this all out is the IRS Publication 4557. So it tells you about safeguarding taxpayer data and the guidance for implementing the WISP. And then the FTC Safeguards Rule is the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. It applies to any firm that is providing financial services, including tax offices. In 2026, as I mentioned, is the year that they've really started to enforce these compliance requirements. And then what the IRS and the FTC require you to have as a tax or financial institution. Number 1, you've got to have a WISP. So this is the plan of if something happens, what do we do? And it includes all of the documentation and information regarding your business for a single point of access, so that if something happens, you've got all this information already documented and you've got a plan in place. And then number 2 is designated security lead. So this is going to be a person at the office, or if you have an IT company that you work with, it could be somebody from there. But this is going to be the lead person in charge that when there's a breach, who is handling all of this information. And then number 3 is risk assessment. So risk assessments, they look at the business from the computers, the information stored on the computers, the software on the computers, the network that they connect to, all the way to dark web monitoring and email security and risk. So risk assessments are very comprehensive in uncovering data risks to a business. Number 4, multi-factor authentication. So any tax software or tax portals, email accounts, anything that is deemed a critical account or software for the business should have multi-factor authentication enabled. Number 5, data encryption. So whether the data is at rest, meaning it's just saved to the computer, you're not accessing it, you're not doing anything with it, the data needs to be encrypted. And then if it's in transit, it also needs to be encrypted. So this would be if you are uploading it to a secure portal that you may use to file share files with your clients. Excuse me. But whether it's at rest or in transit, the data must be encrypted. And then the last item is your incident response plan. So this is also when there's a breach, what are the policies? What is the procedure that you must follow? Who's going to be in charge? It kind of brings everything together that's listed here as part of the incident response plan. And those are critical because if an incident is happening in real time, you can respond quicker and be able to mitigate the risk a lot quicker than if you're running around with your hair on fire and you're not sure what to do. That's why an incident response plan is critical. And then what is the WISP, or what is a further definition of what the WISP is? So this is going to, the WISP document must include how you collect and store client data. So the different avenues, whether there's a website form or if they're handwriting and filling documents out at your office, you need to have it collected on how do you collect and store data from your clients. And that's all outlined. And then who has access to that data and why. So does every employee need access to all of the client files that you have, or should they be limited to certain things? And so now you need to know who has access to what files and why do they have access to those files. Password and authentication policies. So with passwords, you've got to have super secure long passwords, and then the authentication policies surrounding them, meaning are you using multi-factor? Is it text multi-factor, or is it the authenticator app on your phone that you're using? And one thing that I will say about passwords is if you have passwords stored in a browser, saved to your browser, those could be exported in under a minute. Those are very easily to be exported and stolen. You should be using a password manager because they are a lot harder to steal the information from, and your credentials are much more secure that way. Employee security training records. So if you were training your employees every year, you should be keeping records on that, that they're being trained and what are they passing their quizzes, who, the different things related to the training of your employees. And then vendor and third-party access controls. So if you have vendors or third party that are accessing your systems or your files or anything like that, you have to have access controls in place, meaning, if they shouldn't be accessing all of your files at once. They should only get access to what they need. So you need to have all of that documented, who has access to what and why. And then an incident response procedure. So again, going back to the previous slide, you need to know what's going to happen when there's a breach. What are the procedures that you have to follow? Who's in charge of it? What do you do? Who do you call? What are the next steps? It's a lot easier to respond to an incident when you have an incident response plan than when you have nothing. And as I said previously, if you have an incident and you're running around like your hair's on fire, it does nobody any good. And then an annual review and update log. So every year things could change. So you need to review your WISP and just ensure that everything is current and up to date, because it's just as critical to have it as it is to keep it up to date. And then for if you've got no WISP, obviously that's an immediate risk because the IRS could revoke your EFIN. FTC could fine you up to $100,000 per day per violation. Personal liability for principals. So the principals of the business could be responsible for the liability or any costs involved if there's no WISP. Client lawsuits after a breach. So with no WISP, been no accountability behind it. Client lawsuits could happen, and you know, you need to prove that you were doing everything in your power to protect their data. And then the IRS does provide a WISP template. So if you go online to the publication 5708, it does have the template in there. And just know that even having a basic one puts you ahead of over 80% of other tax and financial professionals, because most others don't actually have one, which again, you know, puts them at significant risk for all of the section of no WISP equals immediate risk. Oops. And then the cost of noncompliance, you know, as I mentioned, all of this information. So for the FTC, it could be up to $100,000 per day per violation. With the IRS, you could lose your EFIN, that you wouldn't be able to file taxes anymore. And then if you, the 100% of the liability could fall on the principals of the business if there's no WISP in place. So the timeline below that is in 2021, that's when the FTC Safeguards Rules were updated to modern standards, which even 5 years later, they're behind the times. And then in 2023, they started really enforcing those requirements, those compliance requirements. 2025, the IRS audits of WISP compliance had started. So now that's when they started reaching out and auditing IRS professionals. Tax professionals, to ensure that they had a WISP and that it was up to date and current. And then the most recent is in 2026, enforcement has really ramped up. So they, you know, the IRS, the FTC, they started to realize just how critical breaches and data security is in today's world. So now they're really starting to ramp up enforcement and just being, you know, and ensuring that people that are handling sensitive data, they are doing it properly. And with, you know, a simple 30-day baseline could get you to compliance in no time. So week 1, you assess and document. So that's where you're going to download the WISP template and fill that out. And then you have you make a list of all the software with client tax data. So whatever software you're using that has all your client tax information in, make a list of it, and then identify who has access to what. So again, going back to the who has access to what files. Does somebody have more access to files than they should have? You know, they don't need access to everything, only certain things. So that's the assess and document. And then week 2 is where you secure your systems. So you enable multi-factor on all of your tax portals, emails, tax software, and then you audit and update all of your passwords. And that's where I would recommend using a password manager, because it can help make super complex passwords that are stored in the password manager, which is a much more secure method than storing them in the browser. And then the last item is encrypting your computers. So whether it's using BitLocker or FileVault, just encrypting the computers, all of the documents that you've got saved to those computers, that helps ensure they're protected at rest. And then week 3, so now you're training your team. You're going to do phishing awareness training and just teaching your employees what to look for with phishing emails. AI has made it that it's very difficult to decipher real from fake. So you've got to do the phishing awareness training. And then you define incident response steps. So now you're kind of putting out the framework of your incident response plan and just having everything, excuse me, having everything in line that is required. And then you set data retention and destruction policies. So most people abide by the 7-year rule. They keep all data for 7 years and then they destroy it. And even physical documentation, if you've got boxes of documents in a closet somewhere, theoretically, those are just as vulnerable as digital files on a computer. If somebody would break into the office and steal any of those boxes, you're in the same boat as if someone that got breached. And then week 4, the last week of the 30-day, you review and assign. So now you're designated your security coordinator. So who's going to be responsible for all of the processes and procedures in place with the WISP and the incident response plan, just having somebody there to be in charge. And then you're going to sign and date your WISP, which is now going to make it official. And then from there, you want to do a calendar reminder, whether it's in Outlook or whatever else you use. Just make a calendar reminder to remind you every year. So in 12 months from the day that you were ready to go, in 12 months, we've got to review this and make sure it's up to date and current. Though that's the end of the week 4. So with these 4 weeks, in no time, you can be compliant, whether you are now or not. It doesn't take much to get compliant. So take action today. So the sooner that you take action, the better for your business. Your clients are trusting you with their most sensitive information. So don't let an IRS audit or a breach find out that you're exposed. You don't want to lose reputation to your clients and to the community. So the first step would be downloading the publication 5708 WISP template. And then if you would need any help filling things out or anything like that, let us know. And then we also offer a free compliance assessment. So it is a 30-minute call where it's free, where we will kind of review your environment, and it's just a question and answer. We can do it over the phone. We can do it via Teams or Zoom. And it's super straightforward. Just answer questions and we'll just see what your risk looks like. And then there's our phone number and our website if you need more information. And then we've got a little Q&A section. So the most common questions that people will ask is, if I'm a solo operator, if I'm just one person in an office doing people's taxes, do I need to have a WISP? And the answer is yes. No matter if you're one tax professional or 100 tax professionals in an office, the business needs to have a WISP. And then how long does it take? How long does a WISP take to fill out and do all that? So a WISP only takes 2 to 4 hours to complete. So it's not like it takes a whole long time to get that ready. And then can your IT provider help? That's exactly what IT providers and managed service providers do. So if you need any help, they can help, whether you've got somebody or if you need someone like our B&R Computers, we can definitely help you fill out a WISP as well. So I hope that is informative and that helps you get an idea of what tax professionals and financial institutions need to abide by. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help answer your questions. If you want to schedule a free assessment, you can reach out, send an email, and we'd be happy to schedule that. So hopefully that was informative, and I'll let you get back to your day. All right. Bye-bye.